Joined now by Cherise Trump from Speech First. And Cherise, good chat with you again. Been a little while since you've been on the program here. Like I mentioned a few minutes ago, with the DEI thing, I think, got caught off guard years ago when all of a sudden these major corporations are poking us in the eye and we're saying we're your customers. And then we see it in government entities and government programs and all of this sort of thing. But that has to come from somewhere, and it kind of festers up a lot of times through the college campus and university system. What is the status of the ideological battle to win over this nonsensical worldview known as DEI right now?
I mean, it's an excellent question because we have to start looking at what works and what doesn't. So, it's always something when we start seeing stuff seeping off campus and into the real world. But the reality is this has been going on for decades now, not only on college campuses, but it has been seeping into our media, into the shows we watch, into Hollywood. And it's been influencing significantly just our culture generally. And then, yes, more recently, we've been seeing ESG initiatives through companies requiring major corporations to toe the DEI, far left woke political agenda as well in order to make sure they have the right investors. So yes, it did start on campus. It started on campus a very long time ago. It is based on Marxist ideology. So if that gives you an indicator of how long this has been going on. But it's something that it's because it's been existing for so long, it is very much built into various aspects of the university experience. So right now, everyone's kind of going after the DEI departments because those are the newest things and they're also very tangible. You can identify them easily. You can see who works for them. You know where the funding is going. And you can say, okay, that is outlawed. You can no longer do that. And a lot of states have initiated laws that say, nope, we're shutting down DEI departments. We're not paying for this anymore. And universities will, of course, try to get around that in some way by repurposing the staff of the DEI office into like Title IX offices or other areas of the academy in order to keep those people on campus exacting their own political agendas, regardless of whether or not they have DEI funding. So that's one issue that states have been trying to deal with. Like, how do we navigate that? How do we make sure they're not repurposing? They need to actually be firing these people. These are political ideologues who are specifically hired to enforce a political ideology on campus. That needs to stop. However, this is so built into curriculum, for example. It's so built into faculty departments. Many departments have their own DEI officers. Many law schools, medical schools have their own DEI departments. So if we're just looking at undergrad, then we're missing a big swath of the student population. So again, this is what Speech First has been working on a lot. We've been trying to help states kind of maneuver throughout and just identify instances for them where we might be missing, but still can be tackled by state policy. And our DEI report that we put out earlier this year shows that based on course mandates, for example. So a lot of universities, we found that 67% of schools, public and private, require students to take a DEI course in order to graduate. That's part of the curriculum. That's not something that's based out of a DEI department. It doesn't even need to be reinforced by a DEI department because it's just the university standard. So that's something that states could easily target and say, no, you cannot require students to take a DEI course in order to graduate.
Good morning, Cherise. Gabe Pfeiffer here. So I think critics of the DEI, the anti-DEI legislation suggest that maybe the broad language might be misused or abused or misapplied. How do you respond to those people who would say that you're creating free speech concerns all on your own by going after the DEI offices?
Yeah, I mean, it's the interesting thing is, so we're a free speech organization, and we actually sue universities that violate free speech rights of their students through their policies. And so a lot of the policies that we've actually seen that attack free speech and suppress speech, censor students, and coerce them are almost all coming out of DEI departments, actually. And so we can say very confidently that DEI departments or the DEI, movement on campus and these initiatives actually do less to support speech than they do to help it. In fact, their policies specifically target student speech that's constitutionally protected. And I'm talking about them managing bias reporting systems, which are anonymous reporting systems where students are expected to report on one another for instances of bias. because bias is uncomfortable. It offends people. It makes people, think about microaggressions and trigger warnings. And these are all concepts that were born out of this DEI ideology, right? This is what it was all born out of. So that exactly is an exact example of what these departments are trying to spew out. They're saying it's all for inclusivity. It's all for, they don't say equality, they say equity. And that's an important distinction there, because that means equal outcome, not equal opportunity. And they all say it's all, diversity. There's no harm in just having a diverse population. Of course, we know that on its face, but if you're forcing the diverse population, if you're forcing people to not, to toe your line and say that they have to use your pronouns, they have to say the things that you want them to say, they can't dress up a certain way, they can't for Halloween. These are all very totalitarian tactics that are coming out of these departments. So I would argue that we're doing much more to save speech by getting rid of the DEI departments than we are in harming it.
Good morning, Cherise. Stal Ponticus here. So on the business side, Robbie Starbuck has been exposing DEI issues on the corporate side. Is there anyone on the educational side doing a similar expose besides you?
Yeah, there's a number of organizations that are doing great things. So the Manhattan Institute has Ilya Shapiro and Chris Rufo. They've been working hard on exposing a lot of this. Aaron Tabarium at the Washington Free Beacon, he and I just worked on an article together about University of South Carolina, because this we have a tip line at Speech First that I hope many students hear this and use it, because we get tips saying what universities are forcing students to do with DEI. And one of the things we found at USC is that they're requiring students, in order to have access to register for their classes, they have to pass the DEI module with an 80% or higher. And it's coercing answers out of the students, saying this is the correct answer. You did not answer this correctly, so you have to say this. You have to say DEI is good. You cannot say DEI is harmful. And so that is clear evidence of coercion and seriously concerning for the campus. So Aaron was able to put that expose out there on the Washington Free Beacon. Again, there's a number of people who are trying to expose things. Now we have to now that we've kind of understood the problem, we've exposed it, now we have to find ways to get rid of it and to solve the problem. So that's where states come in. States have to take control of their universities. You see Florida and Texas and Idaho and a number of states attempting to do this. But of course, there are going to be roadblocks. The most important thing I can emphasize for states, though, in this situation is that there have to be accountability measures included in their policies. This is something that they're always hesitant to do. It's difficult to pass when there are accountability measures, but their policies and their laws have to say that you will not get state funding from us if you do not follow this law. And I know that sounds like a no-brainer to us, but at states, they actually have a really hard time putting in accountability measures into their laws, holding universities accountable.
All right, we just got a minute or so left. We're visiting with Cherise Trump from Speech First. You know what the word that jumped out at me the most in that last answer you just gave is coercion. We're not talking about the marketplace of ideas on a college campus where you're supposed to debate ideas, even stupid ones. We're talking about coercion as in this is going to be the accepted entrance mindset. We're going to frame it and base it from here based on what we're going to force you to accept as right and wrong. To me, that's the key of this entire conversation.
Right, exactly. That's the end goal, right? So they want you to be repeating everything that they are saying as correct. It's very Orwellian. It starts off with dividing people into groups, these identity politics, separating individuals so that they can't collaborate with one another, so that they can't feel like they're peers. Instead, they kind of are looking over their shoulder, suspicious of one another. And then it moves on. Now that you're all divided, we have more control over you. And now it moves on and says, okay, now that we have more control over you, we're going to stop you from questioning things. You can't question. You have to say what we want to say. And then it moves into the coercive tactics where you say, okay, now this is the right answer. You can't say the wrong answer anymore. And it goes on and on like that. That is the playbook of a totalitarian regime. And so it's important that we recognize red flags when we see them.
All right. And going after this toxic ideology on the college campus level before, well, pun intended, graduates up, absolutely something needs to be done. So, Cherise, people want to learn more about what you're doing at Speech First. The best way to do it is how?
Speechfirst.org is our website. That's where you can find our student tip line. You can also find our report that I mentioned on DEI, and you can learn more about our lawsuits. You can also follow us on social media at Speech First, and my own Twitter account is Cherise Trump, so you can find me there.
All right. Thanks, Cherise. We'll talk to you again soon.